Inside my slider type joysticks, and this is an example of one of them, is this analog mini thumbstick. These were originally designed for the Sony PlayStation Portable, and they're neat parts because they're small, and more importantly, they don't tilt. So they are flat on the XY axis. The downside is they're really not that strong. They are fine for your thumb or fingertips, but beyond that, they take a lot of stress. And what happens with them is there is a little spring inside here that centers it, and if it's stressed too much, that spring will either flex or fail. And one of the ways that it fails is it allows the disc to spin when it shouldn't spin, and that can be troublesome. So I came up with a anti-spin method that I've been deploying with my I've been sending these out for the past couple of months now. So if you've ordered one in the past couple of months, almost a year, you'll have this sort of design inside of it. So let me show you what I did with anti-spin, and I'm going to start by taking it apart and then putting it back together. So the first thing is everything in this stick is held with M24 hex screws. So you will need a 1.5 millimeter driver to open it up. So the first thing you do is you unscrew the two here on the top that hold the disc in place. So you don't have to take it off completely, but you can see, so it just pops off like that. So that's that part. So that's the disc that you manipulate. Now inside, now I make all of these now, the R series sticks all open up, they aren't glued, so the cover just pops right off. So you pop off the cover, and then inside you have this mechanism, and it pops off too. So what you have is you have this disc, and this happens to be green, but a lot of them it'll be black or some other color or clear. And you have the stick underneath it. And the way that this works is this gray part here is the anti-spin mechanism. So when it sits inside the enclosure, these tabs on the two ends prevent it from twisting. Now it still needs to move around, and that's why there are slots in the anti-spin, and these are held in place with more M24 screws. So when I put it together, I first tighten these down and then I loosen it up so that it should move very, very smoothly like that. So you want it enough so that it's holding together, but not so much that it creates a drag. And this simply press fits on top of the joystick. Make sure you have it oriented correctly. It should look like this. And then you just kind of align it and press it in. And then you make sure those two tabs there are inside the enclosure, and then you snap the enclosure back in place. Now, at this point, it will work, but it's going to feel grindy inside because the disc is an important part of keeping all of this stuff in alignment. So there are two pins here that you align with the two bigger holes on the disc, plop it in place, and then you screw it down. Now, it's important that you tighten the top pretty well, because what you're doing is you're pulling together that inside piece to the disc so that it has the right amount of distance. There's a lot of crazy measurement inside these cases to get it to be relatively smooth. So that gets us into the setup we want. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if you have an old one that does not have anti-spin, the height of these parts has changed. So an old enclosure will not work with these newer parts because I had to adjust the overall height. The other thing is, if usually they're pretty smooth. If you're noticing that they aren't smooth, you can get some tape. Oh, I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's basically a very slippery sort of tape that's used to be for low friction, and that could be affixed to the bottom of the disc, and that'll help clean up any remaining things. So that's how my anti-spin mechanism works. It has been doing pretty well. It's gone through a number of iterations. I'm still not utterly happy. At some point, I'm going to replace this analog mini thumbstick altogether with a different sensor, with a magnetic sensor, so that we just take it out of the picture altogether. So there we go. That's how it goes together and comes apart.